Hello and welcome to the Low Tox Life podcast.
I want to say one of the biggest ones that I think is very important for every child is making phone calls. And there's a science behind that we do talk about. Making phone calls is huge. Like, I don't mean texting, I mean making the phone call physically on the phone and calling and talking. Obviously, in-person connection is even better.
It never ceases to amaze me how many hundreds of shows I've done, and yet I find these incredible people who can give us a completely fresh perspective on their area of expertise. And I'm joined today by Dr. Meenal Agarwal, who is an optometrist, board certified, based in Canada. As an eye doctor, she thought she'd be helping people with their eyesight. Little did she know that a personal experience combined with things she was seeing more and more in clinic as the years progressed, she deep dived into some of the things that were happening by spending so much of our lives in near range focus. What you will learn will probably terrify you a little bit, but we are not here to make you even more anxious than our modern world does. We are here to explain how that might be playing out in your life, your family's life, and how powerful it is to actually rethink how we structure our days, our work days, our children's school days, study time. There's so much we can do to prevent some of the many negative health impacts, mind and body, that you're going to be learning about today in the show. I am very eager to jump straight into that. Let's hear from both of our wonderful show supporters and dive straight in. Something our OG human bodies have definitely not evolved to deal with and filter is all of the toxins that you find in modern drinking water. The bacteria, fungi, viruses have always existed in water as a possible danger, but now we also have to deal with modern man-made chemicals, chlorine that's added in, fluoride that's added in, plastics, nanoplastics, microplastics, PFAS, forever chemicals. That's a lot. So just like those dehumidifiers and air purifiers, my trio of things that we need in the modern life, waterscoaustralia.com.au, are brilliant. Their smallest, most basic water filter still has 7 stages of water filtration and a remineralization step for your trace minerals. So that's pretty powerful, but the biggest one, we have it, the Bio 1000 benchtop water filter, has 15 stages of filtration. And so everything you choose in the range is a great idea. And then it's up to you what you have the budget for, what you have the space for. If you choose the subscription model, which auto subscribes you to discounted refills ongoing, and you can cancel that anytime, I highly recommend the brand. 40 years of Korean water technology research in filtration behind it, always improving every day, every year. waterscoaustralia.com.au. There are a lot of things that we can think we need when it comes to reducing our environmental toxin exposures and improving the health of our homes. 2 things that I genuinely believe move the needle massively are dehumidifiers and air purifiers. Just like us needing walking and sunshine and water, our homes need care as well, and dehumidification, especially once you know through getting a climate gauge, and that's the easiest thing. That's like a $20 spend to pop one in a couple of different areas of your home. If you see that those are over 60% humidity regularly, this is why we end up with those moldy clothes and bags and shoes in the back of a cupboard in the shady bedroom of the house. So if you haven't invested in a dehumidifier, please go check out ozclimate.com.au. If you're an Aussie, if you're overseas, there will no doubt be a great dehumidifier brand in your part of the world. But I do know you can get OzClimate in Australia and New Zealand, and you have 10% off with the code LOWTOXLIFE, and that often works on top of sale prices. And if you have any questions on the Instagram feed at LowToxLife, if you scroll down a little bit on the main feed, you'll see a huge stack of tiles that have a white background with the parts 1 through 10. And that is a whole suite of dehumidifying how to's, why to's, when to's, what to's to help you feel more literate, know what you should get and when you should use it. Hey, Meenal, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, Alex.
I'm so thrilled to have this conversation. There is so much talk about screens on the internet, but we often talk about it from the psychological aspects and obviously, danger to kids and all these sorts of ideas around AI and fear. And
Yeah.
we're talking about something a little different today, which is obviously your field of expertise, optometry. Can we start with whether this is a personal reason or whether it was a clinical or a combination of both?
Yeah, Alex, writing a book never was in the cards for me. I just had never thought I would ever be a writer. I didn't know how to write. I didn't know anything about like whether even I had a concept. There was no plan of a book. It was my story that I actually wanted to share, and going through, health issues. So about 4 years ago or so, I was off work, and I'm an optometrist, so I'm in clinical practice all day where I am talking to patients and I chart, but I'm mainly talking to patients. It's more of a 3D, not a flat screen all day. And I was off for health reasons for about 2 months. In
Hmm.
those 2 months, I was really bored because I'm someone that just always needs to do something. And I didn't know what to do with my time. So I knew I loved talking. So I said, I'm going to start my podcast. But I had no idea how to start a podcast. I had no idea what to do. I'm not tech savvy. Again,
Join
that
the
was not in the
club.
cards. Yeah. And that was not in the cards at all. So what happened was I spent those 2 months on a computer probably 15 hours a day,
Hmm.
researching, figuring out how I'm going to start, just understanding this whole thing. And I had never come from a world where I was talking to people to a screen all day. I had never
Hmm.
experienced this before. Slowly what I started realizing is I was losing my ability to give directions. I was losing my spatial analysis of the world when I was driving, and I actually started becoming scared of driving. So when my husband would say like, "Can you go pick up the kids from there?" and it was a birthday party where I had never been to that spot, even if it was 10 minutes away, I would hesitate and I would be like, "No." And what ended up happening eventually is I decided like my brain would tell me to just stay home, and I started becoming
Oh,
introverted.
wow.
I lost a lot of friends because I would just not go out. I developed more anxiety. I started having more panic attacks. I probably was ending up having some form of depression. My nerve pain was going up. I was on high alert all the time where I was worried about things. My mind was going on overdrive. There were so many consequences. My memory was off. And when my kids said to me, like, sit down and, play with us, and I wouldn't do it, that is when I started realizing, oh my God, this is affecting motherhood. I'm a bad mom. And when I started questioning myself as a mother, I knew something was wrong with me. I knew,
Hmm.
like, this is not the person I am. How did I become like this? So I went to my doctor and I asked to order tests. I said, I think the differentials for me is either, and we had our house tested, mold toxicity. That was one of my differentials. And then was early Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, some form of cognitive disorder. I had read a lot about people in their 40s developing these, and we're starting to see that more. I said, something is wrong with me. And they were like, we'll order an MRI, but it takes a long time and there's no need for us to do testing. And I couldn't get answers. My MRI was not even scheduled. It was a disaster. I felt caught. I started visiting a physio, a chiro. I didn't know where to go. Nobody was there
Hmm.
to help me. And I said, something is going on with my brain. It was like foggy baby brain times 10. And it just kept getting worse and worse. I started researching like what is happening, all these symptoms, what's going on. Why can I not travel without the GPS? Why am I becoming so dependent with the GPS? That was like one of the big things for me. And I started diving into this concept that I had never heard of, never learned. In 4 years of school, we're taught about the eyes, but I had never understood this concept of spatial awareness.
Hmm.
And I started giving myself a disorder name. And I started saying, I classify as someone with spatial awareness processing disorder because everyone else was classifying me as your baby brain still, foggy brain. Maybe it's perimenopause, I was told many times. Maybe I have early something that is coming. Maybe I will experience Alzheimer's or dementia early on in a few years. Nobody, and anxiety, that was another thing. I was given a lot more anxiety medication, and
Oh
I
my
knew I was on the verge of
goodness.
getting
And
depression meds.
so all of this happened in the space of 2 months?
Right, like towards the end of the 2 months, that's when I was really getting,
Hmm.
really experiencing it. So about the third month, I was starting to get back into work, and that's when I was given all these meds because I couldn't go to work. I was like, I need to go back to work. I'm done 2 months, but I'm still in so much nerve pain, anxiety's through the roof. I was given gabapentin, with no thought process on why is, my nerves on high alert. Why am I always in so much pain?
And was any of this linked to why you took the 2 months off in the first place?
So I had taken the 2 months off because of my lower back. So when
Hmm.
we are in our profession, we're bending a lot, or maybe because I'm
Yeah.
short, that's part of it. And I was bending a lot, and I actually had to take the 2 months off because of my lower back.
Mm.
So that was the reason I took the 2 months off initially. But this was a completely different
You
thing.
never
It was
thought it
like,
was going to actually
I
create a
got
whole
worse.
bunch of
I
other
got
problems.
worse.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
definitely got 10 times worse. Not really related to my back, but my brain. I started getting headaches, migraine, you name it. I think I got it. I started getting a lot of carpal tunnel pain as well. And I think that was related to me constantly typing. So it was just, there was just so much to the picture that I didn't have answers. I didn't take the gabapentin. I decided I'm not taking it. I'm searching for answers. And when I started understanding that there was this concept, I immediately withdrew from being on a computer that many hours. And even though I wasn't fully back to work, I started doing a lot of grounding, presence, being outdoors more. I no longer was staying up. I would stay up till like 4 a.m. on a computer. I stopped. My cutoff to this day is like 9:30 and I'm done. Do not go
Mm.
back on the computer past 9:30. Honestly, I slowly was recovering. And I said, like, how is that possible? How was it just being on the computer? And that's when the research started. That's when Stuck in a Flat World was born, when I started doing things where I realized there is a true concept, a true brain pathway that is being affected by us being on a central thing all day that's up close within 5 degrees roughly
Mm.
of our central vision. And we have so much more of our vision, you know to like our peripheral awareness, that's missing. All we're focused on 5 degrees when we have so much more going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, something I'm curious about is we see athletes spending more and more of their training time and pre-match or pre-game time on spatial awareness activities. You'll see the tennis players with like a string and a ball and
Oh, yeah,
moving
yeah.
the ball. And I noticed recently, so this is amazing timing for me to validate something that I was already suspicious about, was that if I was on a screen right before tennis comp, I would take a while to feel like I could get the racket and my feet in the right position. Like I'd be like, oh, I didn't see that it was that close to me. And it felt like this like old lady moment where,
Yes,
oh,
absolutely.
kind of vibe.
I
I'm like, hang on a second, because
We're
five
not
minutes
old,
later,
Alex.
I know, right? Like I am on the right side of 50. I'm very determined to prove that. And so, as in, like, I'm 50, and I refuse to believe that means we all of a sudden go into this massive decline. And it was amazing to me to think, oh my gosh, maybe it's the nights where I'm reading something or responding to comments on socials or whatever, and then going straight to a tennis court, that's actually a really bad transition. Like it's a very unnatural transition. That's why it takes a while.
Yeah.
And it feels like you've now been working very hard to prove that that is so, but not just for like the practicality of spatial awareness, but
Yeah.
almost like spatial awareness sickness that has all these other symptoms you've been talking about.
Yeah. And, one of the activities in the book for children is exactly that. It is as simple as staying away from devices before you're going to play an athletic game, especially if they're
Mm,
in rep or pro, any sport. 30 minutes before, be off your devices because your game is going to be off. Your depth
mm,
perception will be off. Your reaction time will be off. It's all connected in this area of our parietal lobe, essentially. And to your point about, you were getting up and going to tennis, if you've ever noticed when you're on a computer for a while and you get up and you kind of feel off balance, like give it 1 second and you need that one
mm,
second just to get on balance, that's because the area that you're looking around called your peripheral space is in your parietal lobe, and your vestibular system also talks to your parietal lobe, and your vestibular system is in charge of your balance and your motion.
mm.
And so when it's not alert, check marked because you're not even looking at space, it's like goes dormant. And so you get up and now your vestibular system's like wake up. So
Yeah.
it's all connected right there, and there's so many other aspects connected in that lobe. Your cerebellum talks to that area. Your amygdala, which is your fear center, talks to that area. Your proprioceptive system talks to that area. And that's understanding where our body is in space. So,
Mm,
what happens with proprioception is actually very interesting. And if you remember, I was telling my story about how I didn't want to go out, and meet people. Because when you start losing that sense of your body position in space, you also then do not understand where others are in relation to you. It gets confusing. Like you almost become socially awkward. Am I standing too close? Am I not standing too close? And you will see a
mm.
lot more children that are socially awkward where they don't want to go to birthday parties because they don't understand where they should be. And I recently had a kid tell me, I don't like playing sports that involve teams.
Hmm.
I like playing sports that are alone. And I looked at the parent and they're like, yeah, that's right. Only likes to play sports that are like one on one or with himself, but not a sport that's on a team. Why? Because
Mm.
they can't understand and judge depth and distances and reaction times fast enough because they're not even comfortable with where they are in space. And these are all connected in that parietal lobe because the parietal lobe is what dictates your peripheral awareness. Your temporal lobe of your brain actually is what processes the central 5 degrees. So your temporal lobe is going because you're looking at a device all day, and your parietal lobe's like, okay, let's go to sleep. No one's waking it up. And it's your brain is like a muscle. When it's
Yeah.
not used, it weakens. But there is neuroplasticity, right? So if
Mm,
we can recalibrate and we become more aware, more present, we can start getting that parietal lobe working. And I am, you know, I want to call it a survivor of that because Alex, I was going downhill very fast. The
mm.
depression was about to kick in. I was not the mom I wanted to be. My relationships were going downhill. Everything was going downhill. And,
Wow.
they were trying to shut down my whole body with pain medications to suppress everything. And I know there are other people in this situation. I've had moms crying in the chair that I've been everywhere. No one's trying to help me. I just don't understand why, I'm losing my memory, losing this, my navigational ability. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad parent. And a lot of this is tied into the hours that we spend on near work, whether that's a device or a book. The difference between a device and a book, I also want to clarify. When we're on a device, there tends to be less spatial input because when you're on a book, you look at the book and you're like, okay, I'm on the right side, upper corner. There's turning of pages. There's a little more spatial input. So a book is definitely
Mm.
better. But if you look at the concept, they're both similar in the sense that you are looking at something up close within your central 5 degrees of vision all day.
Mm. Gosh. And I've interviewed a fair few doctors in my time, and I remember Dr. John LaPuma brought the book out a few months ago, Outdoor RX, which obviously speaks to the title, but he talked about one piece of research, and I was keen because you actually had a different piece of research as well. So this is two things to back this up, that if you spend 5 minutes of your hour, if you're a screen person or you have to work at a computer or in artificial light, just finding a horizon and looking out over that horizon, you can have incredible slowdown of things like myopia. And I think I read for you it was like 1 minute, or no, 20 seconds every 20 minutes. Was that the research that
Yeah.
you pulled? Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to
So
us about that.
that's such a great, I mean, point that you mentioned. So when I say our 20 rule, so that's a
Mm,
rule where every 20 minutes for 20 seconds, just look 20 feet, which means far away. Out a
yeah.
window is usually like I have a window here, so I'll just look out periodically. That's just a general rule. We say every 20 minutes, give yourself a break. I mean, if you want to do it every 10 minutes, that's even better. But every
Mm.
20 minutes is a general kind of reminder. A lot of people want to follow rules. They need something set. They want people
Oh,
even tell
I
me they
know,
set
the
a
modern
timer
day
every 20
person.
minutes.
Give me the
Right?
protocol. Tell me what to do.
Give me
Yeah.
the supplement. They just want that. But in general, so the other issue with looking up close all day is myopia. The
Mm,
more we look up close all day, the higher the rate of progression and the onset of myopia is. And myopia is basically nearsightedness needing distance glasses. By the year 2050, 50% of the world will be myopic, and that's a projected stat, and I think we're on track 40 something percent. So we'll probably be
wow.
higher than 50%. So when we talk about outdoor time, the study has shown 90 minutes outdoors. This is
Mm,
what the studies show. 90 minutes of outdoor time can help reduce the onset of myopia.
mm. But it
So that's
sounds
more for
like,
children.
yeah, and the reason I've brought this up is because you've been talking about some pretty debilitating psychological symptoms, and then this really practical, like myopia. It doesn't feel like your world's falling apart when you have to put on a pair of
I know.
glasses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here we have these two
Two things.
seemingly unrelated things that are actually both related to things like outdoor time, time spent in too much of a close vision environment, and would we say the artificial blue light as well would be a factor? Or is that
Yeah.
less clear?
Yeah, you know what? Not enough research. You'll
Mm,
see a lot of people, selling blue light glasses. We know that blue light that comes from devices, blue light in general is the shortest wavelength of visible light. So when we have the
mm,
visible light spectrum, blue is the shortest, and that's why we pick on blue. When it's the shortest, it has the highest energy. Because
mhm,
it has so much energy, it tends to scatter the most. So when we tell patients that they're on screens a lot and they're getting eye strain, we call it digital eye strain, sometimes we'll tell them to wear blue light filter glasses to help with the scatter. So that can help reduce digital eye strain. But is blue light causing eye diseases like myopia or any other issues like in related to spatial awareness? No. It does have a lot of scatter though, and it can contribute to digital eye strain. So patients who are using their computer late into the night where they're getting that strain, I usually recommend wearing a blue light filter on their glasses just to help reduce that scatter. But there is no studies out there that have proven that blue light can cause diseases like glaucoma, macular degeneration. But Alex, you never know. I do foresee in the next 20, 30 years, we're going to see a study about it, about something,
mm.
some
Yeah, well,
effect of it.
there's a few small studies on the melatonin rise. So at
Oh, yes.
least
So that's your
so we've got,
circadian. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
enough of a benefit, especially for the night
Yeah.
argument, I feel. But like I see, you see a lot of health influencers wearing like orange glasses in the middle of the day. And it feels like that's when we should actually be trying to get a bit more of that stimulation, right? It's always puzzled me, that
It's
particular
always
move.
puzzled me, Alex.
Okay,
Always puzzled
from the
me. Uh,
optometrist doctor herself.
always
Thank
puzzled
you.
me. But you know what? What I will say is I
Mm,
think that might be like a fad or a fashion thing is there are certain patients that I have where I will give certain colored glasses. Like there are
mm,
certain tints that actually help enhance contrast. So for glaucoma patients, for macular degeneration patients, patients who actually lost vision, there are certain color tints that help their contrast for night driving and things like that. But wearing blue blocking lenses all day, to me, it doesn't even make sense. You're actually making it harder to see because you're cutting out a wavelength of light. So,
mm,
and you're making things kind of a distorted color. So to me, I don't want to see my wall in a different color or my computer in a different color.
In the
Like to
middle of
me,
the
I've
day.
never,
Yeah.
I've never understood that. And you do exactly what you said. You want to wake up your circadian rhythm, and one of the biggest things is getting that blue light in the morning, and throughout the day, because when it hits, it goes through your intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They
Ooh.
directly stimulate the SCN or suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that is your brain's master or your body's master clock. When that gets signaled, it signals your hormones, your cortisol, your every part of your body is regulated by the SCN. It is literally the body's master clock. And if you are not letting that wake up in the morning through this light, I don't know, like I do feel like your hormones are going to go out of whack and there's other complications. Again, like you said, at nighttime, sure, wear it. I'm all for it. But in the
Mm.
daytime, I do think you want that blue light exposure. And if you think you're getting too much, take the breaks, I think.
Yeah, take the breaks rather than putting on the glasses. There is a type of blue light blocking glass for digital eye strain specifically that only filters like 50%, which could speak to the scattering that you're talking about. So they actually look like this, like regular glasses.
You got it.
But they're doing like a little bit of filtering to combat the
Yeah.
computer factor. Yeah.
Yeah, like here in Canada, we have the ones typically they filter about 30 to 40%.
Mm.
And it's just a coating they're adding on to your regular
Yeah.
glasses. And that's what I recommend for people who are on a computer, working from home 10 hours a day and they want to just use that. But I always say
Mm.
out in the morning, get your natural light. I think it's
Yeah.
so important, to get that sunlight.
The morning walk, just like literally the easiest health hack in the world.
Yeah, even like sitting on your porch for like a morning
Yeah, the
coffee,
morning
that
porch.
counts, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
whatever you can do. Like here it's winter time, and in
Oh,
December it's winter for like what, 5, 6 months. I mean, we had a long winter this year, so we can't get out in the morning. It's really
mm,
hard. So sometimes all I do is literally open the door and stand outside like 5 feet, not even away. Whatever
mm,
you can do, at least you're trying. And I think it's better than a supplement. I think we honestly, we over supplement ourselves, we overcomplicate things when we just need to sometimes get down to the basics. And I think that's what a lot of Stuck in a Flat World is about. It's about recalibrating, bringing our minds back to presence. We talk a lot about mindfulness, but we
mm,
don't talk about being present,
I love that.
knowing where you are, knowing where your senses are, it's just standing still, feeling your feet on the ground, hearing what you're hearing, smelling what you're smelling, seeing what you're seeing, and then acting accordingly or having motion. I think presence is so underestimated. And I like to say that if you don't know where you are in space, you don't know where you are in your story. And that's very, very debilitating. And it was definitely debilitating for me.
Gosh, and it makes you realize just how powerful gentle arts like Qigong and Tai Chi are, because you're literally following your hand and it's all so slow. And then they're like the most lethal fighters in the world. And I'm kind of now getting a sense of why that would be true, even though it seems like, oh, that's way too slow. You're not training your
Yeah.
reaction time, but you actually are because it's about presence and proprioception.
100%. Like
Wow.
yoga, right? It's the same. Tai
Mm,
Chi, yoga, all very important skills because as you're moving slowly, every part of your brain is working. Where am I going? It's calculated movements. It's all part of spatial training. I think it's important for everybody now in this day and age to have some spatial training.
mm. Well, as soon as I saw my favorite tennis players, because I'm a bit of a nutter for tennis, doing all of that work before their matches, I was like, ooh, I'm going to do some of that. And it's actually really quite hard when you first start. You feel like there are muscles that you're working out and they're sore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So, can we dig into some of the nerdier aspects of the science of the relationship between why one could become more anxious and scared spending time on screens? Because it's easy to say, just get off screens, go outside. Like those sorts of things feel like, oh, yeah, 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 I know what to do, but we're not
Yes.
doing it necessarily.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
need some serious reason to like, oh,
Absolutely.
wow, well, that's irrefutable. I've really got to sort
Yeah.
this out because now I'm thinking about anxiety and fear as I thought it was about getting older, but actually it was about sitting down more and spending more time on screens, slowing down in
Yeah.
life. Like, I think that could be with geriatric patients. You would see this as well
Oh,
now that they've
yes.
all
Yeah.
got their smartphones. Yeah.
When I talk about, spatial awareness on social media or anywhere, I do have elderly patients who write me. Some have shared their stories and say this was exactly me or this was exactly my husband. And it means a lot because it means that, hopefully they can recalibrate and get on the right path. So to speak to a bit of the science behind it. So your parietal lobe talks to every part of your brain, talks to every part of your brain. And your amygdala, we call it the fear center. And or we used to call it the fear center. Now we started, neuroscience is starting to rephrase it as the uncertainty center, or the center of uncertainty.
Ah, yeah, if you
Not so much
can't
the fear center.
predict, then you're scared.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So what happens with the parietal lobe, if it is used to not getting all this spatial information. So it's used to just being, let's call it lazy and not getting, input from the vestibular system, proprioceptive system. It's used to just being inactive because the temporal
Mm.
lobe is active because you're sitting on a device all day. So not a lot of that is working. And now let's say you go into a crowd,
Hmm.
right? You go to a party. And now, oh my God, you have no control. There's a lot of space happening. And now your parietal lobe is getting oh my God, vestibular system is talking, proprioceptive system is talking, cerebellum, the hippocampus, saying like, do you remember who this person is? There's lots of talking happening. It now sends an uncertainty signal to the amygdala. And the amygdala
Because
is like, what's happening?
you can't remember Jenny's name, so your whole brain is like,
He has
alert,
no
alert.
idea. Uncertainty. And so it goes on high alert. And what that can feel like is, well, it then signals your sympathetic system to be
Hmm.
triggered. And so your breathing gets more rapid. You can start sweating. You start getting more anxious. Your chest tightens. Your heart rate can climb. And that's really because your sympathetic system is on overdrive. You release
Mm.
more norepinephrine. And that is simply because of uncertainty from the parietal lobe, because it is not used to this environment. However, if you are used to that environment, you will be fine. I'll put it in an easier scenario. When we come to our homes, we know where our steps are. How many steps do I have to take to get to the steps? I know where everything is in relation to my walls and everything in my home. So
Otherwise, we'd be bumping into everything, right?
yeah, we know where our
Mm.
floor is. We feel grounded. We feel good. So our vestibular system, everything is talking to the parietal lobe. Everything is great. There's no uncertainty. The amygdala doesn't have to do anything. But
Mm.
if I go into a forest or a jungle and, I don't know what I'm feeling on the floor, everything's unpredictable. I don't know what animals are coming. I hear sounds. And everything is just like all over the place. There's uncertainty. And so your amygdala will go on high alert. So even
Hmm.
though you're looking at space in both aspects, so you have spatial awareness because you have spatial awareness at home, you're looking all around your home. You have spatial awareness, in the forest, but your amygdala goes on high alert because there's uncertainty in the forest.
Mm.
That is the same thing, but it's only because you're not processing space regularly. So it's going on high alert
Got
in
it.
areas that it should not. I should not be on high alert when I go out to a party because I have been used to going to parties for the last 40 years of my life. So I
Mm.
should not be on high alert. But it's like a forest to me.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about kids then, because this, like, as I'm hearing what you're saying, it makes me think of the kids that are more anxious than ever. It's not necessarily just about the content itself, which of course is a huge part of the rise in anxiety in kids. We know that. But what we're now learning from you is that it's actually about losing your sense of space as well.
100%. And I'm not one to say it's all of their anxiety. There are
No,
definitely
no,
other
of course.
contributing
Lots of players.
factors for a lot. Yeah. But I think it's a big part of it. And the first thing that I get when parents come to me, obviously they come to me for their vision, And a lot of it, when I talk about screen time, I hear kids 4 years old, they're on it 8 hours a day.
Oh my
And, it
goodness.
may be appropriate. Like maybe they're just watching a Peppa Pig all day. I don't know. But the point is that they're looking at a device up close all day. And so, of course, they're going to be socially not, I don't want to say normal because there is no normal, but
Mm,
socially not where they should be or on par with their grade level. And so, I think there's an issue with the amount of time people are on devices, not just the quality. Obviously, there's the
yeah.
social media quality aspect, but the amount of time people are on their devices. I don't think I've ever seen people read books, as much as they're on a device. And that's huge for us nowadays. It's a conversation about taking breaks and visual hygiene or computer hygiene that we're talking to parents about, because a lot of them are still unaware that this is affecting their sports, this is affecting their learning, this is affecting their relationships with making friends. A lot of people are not going to birthday parties anymore. And one of the
Mm,
biggest things, Alex, that I noticed in clinic, the number one thing that triggered me was in Ontario here, we have to tick when we see a patient if they have a license restriction, meaning they have to wear glasses to drive. That is
mm,
part of our charting to make sure if, God forbid, they get into an accident, did they have glasses on? Did they not? So it's part of our charting, has to be on their clinical record. So we ask everybody who is 16 and over, here you can get a license. Do you have a license, and do you have a restriction that you have to wear glasses to drive? I was seeing post pandemic a huge uptick
mm.
in 16 plus year olds, like 16 to 18. No, but I'm not driving yet. No, I don't have a license yet. I don't have a license. And I was like, what's happening? Nobody's driving anymore. Like everybody's using Uber, or like everybody's rich. I don't know. Like they're all just taking
Mm.
Uber. Like what is happening? When we were 16, we jumped at our license. Doesn't matter
Oh
how
my
many
gosh,
times I failed
yes.
3 times, and I still was going adamant to
Mm-hmm.
pass every day. Like we jumped at our license. These were milestones, and I don't want to say were a requirement, but these were milestones that signaled freedom and
Mm-hmm.
navigational ability. But kids these days, there was a study that cited, I think it was 30%, it was done out of the States. 30% of teens, or children who are able to drive, cite fear as the number one reason for not wanting to get their license.
Wow. Wow. Like if you dig into it, oh no, I'm not ready, I don't care about it. But actually underneath a
They're
large part of it
scared.
is fear. Hmm.
And when you think about it, why are they scared? It was the same reason I stopped driving. Remember, I was telling you that
Yeah.
I didn't want to go and I was scared. Now I drive everywhere, but someone who did come from driving everywhere stopped completely. I would just go to the kids' school, like work, very few places. When you are driving, if you think about how much space you have to process, you're
Mm-hmm.
processing oncoming traffic, you are processing traffic lights, you have to process signs, the speed, you have to control your car, you have to look at other cars, you have to judge depth. That's another thing that's processed in the parietal lobe. So people will fall or miss steps. So you are judging so many things and processing so many things at once that they can't handle it. They're afraid.
Wow. So it's actually a very good cognitive exercise in itself, driving, then, from what you've just described. And that for me, as a parent of a near 17-year-old who I literally have to force to come out and practice driving for a half hour, he's just not interested. And at first I thought, oh, it's because we're in a city, so he can get anywhere he needs to in 10 minutes. I lived a bit more suburban. So for me, it was that ticket out of, not having to take two buses and a train to see someone. Now you've really opened a lot of our eyes up, actually, because this is a very common conversation I'm having with parents who are friends
Yeah.
with late teenagers as well. Like, why don't they want to drive? And I remember my first driving lesson, this I think retrospectively, was this guy crazy letting me go across four lanes of traffic to take a right turn, like on my first lesson? And I can't even get my kid to drive in the city yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to share more of that story. There is actually no more of that story, but all I can say is it's common between my parent friends as we talk about our kids.
100%. And
Yeah.
and I don't want to say we do talk in the book a little bit about the driving as well. because we talk about how we can get our kids to drive. And the one thing I will tell parents is you can't force them, right? Because you're
Mm.
you're really going to give them a bang. So,
Yeah.
their amygdala will go on high alert, they'll develop high anxiety. You don't want to do that. So there are slower steps to take to get them to drive, but I do encourage parents to start with them just sitting in the car with you and
Mm.
getting them to navigate for you.
Hmm.
So don't follow the blue dot.
Oh, I love
Tell
that
them where you
tip.
tell them where you're going and ask them, so how many more streets do we have to go? What street should we turn right on? What street? Let them navigate space. Once they understand space, then there's other steps we can take. But just let them be your GPS. Do not use the blue dot. The blue dot killed me. I will tell you because I relied on it and it just ruined my life.
Yeah, wow. That's a great tip. Thanks, Doc. Something I wanted to talk about with kids as well is if they're more anxious because they're on these flat screens, and obviously we know that's happening with adults now too, from your powerful n=1 moment where you then thought, is this happening to more people? And the answer was, of course, yes. Do we then end up in this vicious cycle of then you don't want to go out so much, then you're spending more time on a screen and you're stuck in a catch 22 because the thing that you're doing to avoid going out is the very thing that has you avoiding going out?
Was me. That was
Mm,
me. It is a vicious cycle. If there's no intervention or no
mm,
recalibration, you cannot get your kids out of it. And for me, as an adult, it was so difficult. It is very difficult to get a teenager out the door. You cannot just pick up a teenager and go, let's go out, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So there are like ways to slowly step them back into life. I want to say one of the biggest ones that I think is very important for every child is making phone calls. And there's a
Mm.
science behind that, we do talk about. Making phone calls is huge. Like, I don't mean texting, I mean making the phone
An
call physically
actual
on the
call.
phone and
Mm,
and calling and talking. Obviously, in-person connection is even better, but they've really lost the art of
mm.
calling or their voice, and they
Well, and
don't
there
know
are
how to
things
make.
happening, right? When we go from brain to mouth to expression.
Yeah. When is
Mm.
that person going to be silent? Okay, when am I supposed to talk next? Otherwise, we fumble over people. We become socially awkward in settings. So calling is very important. I encourage my kids to call their grandparents every single day.
Wow.
Yeah, and I
That's,
say like you don't have to
yeah.
call a friend. I mean, my kids are young, so like they don't have a lot of friends that they're calling. But
Mm,
I say call your grandparents, talk to your grandparents on the phone. Each of them has to
hmm.
call. And it was only because of what I went through that I understood the importance of that. And I still have friends that don't want to talk to me on the phone. I can't tell you, Alex, it really irks me. And honestly, I feel like I'm losing relationships with them because I want to get back to the basics. I am
Mm.
so tired. Like, you can't drop me a text and just say, "How are you?" Like, I think you can call me once a week and just say,
Yeah.
or once a month and just say, "What's up?" Right? I
Mm.
really
Yeah,
cannot
I
make
agree.
plans like that. And when I call people, I can't tell you how many times I'll call someone and they won't pick up, but then I'll get a text 2 seconds later, "Hey, why'd you call?
Oh
What's
my
up?"
goodness. Yeah, there always has to be
Like,
a reason now, right? Yeah. You can just
I
call
don't
for a
know.
chat. I have a close group of girlfriends, and we are our walk and talk girlfriends. So we're on the phone. Well, I use my headphones so that it's not on my ear, of course, but we're on the phone, and we're even in separate places, but we're going for walks in the park in our local areas and we're catching up. And one is more like I've got a really businessy friend, so we inspire each other in our small business. The other few are like just old friends that you can shoot the breeze with and talk about life. And I can't tell you how powerful that is for mental health. But science wise, in terms of using our brain and our expression, like we're not using our eyes there. So, why was this important to you? Was this the anxiety part?
Yeah, so all of that still, all your senses still contribute to the parietal lobe. Your hearing is huge in the parietal lobe, so that's a
Mm,
big part of your vestibular system. So yes, vision is correlated, but this is another way to actually exercise the brain, just a different way to. Obviously, the most powerful way is to visualize the person and be in conversation with them physically.
mm,
But, again, a lot of children don't want to do that. So for me, or as parents nowadays, a lot of us don't have time to always take our kids to play dates and things like that. So if we can even just call people, that is definitely stimulating your parietal lobe versus sitting on a screen.
yeah, yeah. And I think is part of this actually that we don't want all of our communication to be via typing. We want it to be via talking and moving and seeing.
Typing is like
Mm,
there's no reaction time. There's no,
mm,
you can edit, you can delete. There's no, it's like you're filtering times 10, right? So there's
yeah.
just no understanding of you and me in space,
Hmm.
right? It's just so awkward when you're typing, it's so easy. But if that same person was in space, it'd be like, am I talking over you? Should I pause? Should I not? And
Yeah.
Alex, I have to say, people might get this from this conversation. I hope they don't take this away from this conversation. But when I was going through this, I was talking over people. I have trained my brain to stop. And so excuse me if I talk over you because I still tell myself before we started this podcast, before I start anything, I have to mentally tell myself, slow down, do not talk over somebody, understand when they're stopping, understand when you're stopping. And that is
Mm.
something I've never told anyone. So I hope nobody holds me to it. But
It's just us and 30,000
it's,
people. Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
Don't worry, it's safe with
Yeah.
us. But it's so true. Like I have ADHD. I was late diagnosed, but when the psychologist spent that 90 minutes with me, where they try to identify whether it's related to hormone changes or more recent things, and you go all the way back, and they were like, "No, no, you are a 99.9% lifetime ADHD, for sure."
Mhm.
And the beauty of having grown up in the 80s without digital school or digital screens for socializing is you really do have that accurate science in
Yeah.
retrospect. So I am definitely the kind of enthusiast who sometimes talks over, like I'm just so excited. I'm like a little puppy dog when I talk to
Yeah.
people about things that I'm passionate about. That's interesting to me though, because for many people who don't have ADHD, they could be listening to this part of the show and going, I thought I might have ADHD, but actually, maybe I'm spending too much time
Yeah.
communicating digitally and not in real life.
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, 100%. And you know what I think is really important, Alex, is having a conversation with your family. I think that's really important. So if you think as an adult, especially, you're in your 30s, 40s, and you're wondering if you have it, I think letting your kids know that, being on screen could be affecting me,
Mm.
tell me when, it's too much and make it almost fun for them so that you're able to tell them, but they're able to tell you. So
Yeah.
I tell my kids to get off their stuff all the time. But my son, if it's like past 8 o'clock, he will come straight up to me and be like, just stare at me. Like, are you getting off your phone? Like tapping his foot, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I can't say anything to him because I just told him to get off his stuff. So it's like,
Mm.
okay, and I feel so guilty, like, oh my God, I'm so bad. So I think it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
We're all in this as a family together. And so if we
Mm.
all want nervous systems that are calm, we don't want to ignite our sympathetic nervous system all the time when it shouldn't be, then we all need to work as a family together to calm our nervous systems down, be less on our devices. And there's a lot of people that are doing research on ADHD being linked to, screen time and
Mm.
shows. And, there's a lot. I'm not an expert in that specific area, but
Well, it's
there's a lot
definitely
of,
one of the new factors in the soup, right? Because
yeah.
the
And I
explosion
think
of
that,
diagnoses isn't all just late not just, I shouldn't use the word just because I'm one of them, but there is a large group of underserved women in middle age because it wasn't a women and girls thing. It was
yeah,
little white boys banging their heads against the wall. That's what we thought that was. But now that we have many more diagnoses, you've got to think about what's happening in the modern
yeah,
context that has this proliferating in childhood to a much greater and more common extent. Like we have to.
yeah.
Mm,
Environment
mm,
is huge. So, like, when people ask me, give me that exercise, give me that pill, give
mm,
me that drop, like whatever it is to help me, I look at them and I say, that's not sustainable. Like, that is not the right solution. The right solution is looking around you and understanding what environment you're in and
mm.
making active changes. It's like when I go to my chiro and, I go every 4 weeks and he's like, okay, but are you still twisting to the left and that's why your back is hurting? Are you still doing everything at work the same way? And he's like, I can help you every 4 weeks. Sure. but you have to make some conscious lifestyle changes or you're
Mm.
going to be in this pain in your lower back chronically.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Absolutely. And you can see how this affects disproportionately lower socioeconomic groups because we don't have a lot of free, no pay to play third spaces in communities anymore. A lot of,
Yeah,
places for people to congregate. It doesn't have to be that aren't necessarily faith based, that are play based, that are socializing. There was a lot more a generation ago, and you have more people living in apartments. You have more people working really hard to try and make ends meet. You then
yeah,
have screens as babysitters, and that's not actually a parent's fault. That's an economic policy choice if we really
yeah,
dig deep
yeah, yeah.
sometimes. And we're very quick to blame. Oh, it's your habits, it's your
100%.
personal responsibility. And it's the whole of society is kind of wired in a way to set us
Yeah,
up for failure on a lot of fronts at the moment. And so I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it can feel easy to think, oh God, I'm doing everything
yeah,
wrong. And here's another thing I have to try and do better at. And I'm already finding it really hard. Like you'd
I
probably
know.
speak to a lot of patients that feel like, gosh, well, how do I get them off screens if I don't have anything else for them to do?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned the 4-year-old that I was
Mm,
seeing that was on screens about 8 hours or probably even longer a day, and that was a family that was a low income family, and mom and dad were in the room, and obviously we don't judge, so we don't say right away, hey, get off screens. We can't
yeah,
say
yeah.
that, but it's hey, what's the lifestyle like? We try to probe what's happening, and mom and dad work, the whole day from home. They have to be on. And at that point, she was not in school. I think she's starting school now this September. But, they can't afford a daycare. They could not
Mm,
afford, a nanny. They have no choice. They have no
mm,
choice but to give her a screen. And, that is a battle that they definitely had to, we're probably still figuring it out.
yeah,
And they, for them it's like I can't even tell her to take breaks. She takes a break, she'll come into my meeting, and they don't want to get fired. So
mm,
it is a struggle. I don't have answers for those struggles. I think I as a parent am still struggling. I still
yeah.
struggle.
Well, I think half
Everybody
the time
struggles,
we need to just acknowledge that it's not
yeah.
necessarily just a habit change and we're done. There's a
Yes.
lot more complexity behind people's stories. Mm,
100%. 100%. So
mm,
wherever you can cut corners, I think, like for me the biggest thing is I used to come home and be on my device all evening, like as
mm,
much as I, wanted to, and who doesn't want to be on their device? But for me, it was okay after a certain time, after dinner, like do not touch it. I would
mm.
have to remind myself nonstop. Every email is not urgent. Nothing's happening to anybody. If anything's happening, people have your phone number. So stop checking. And there was no reason to keep checking Instagram. There was no reason to keep checking your email. So I think for some parents, a possibility is at least in the evenings to try to consciously, you know, you lower the phone time, lower the device time, and model that behavior. Your children are watching you. Mine certainly watches me, but your
Mm.
children are watching you. And if you're going to constantly be on it, they're going to want to be on it as well.
Yeah. Last question on, I guess, kids, because this is new in schooling, is screens and learning and studying. Like everything seems to be happening on screens for kids in a lot of countries. And of course, the Nordic countries who were early adopters of, oh, ed tech, amazing, are now also the early quitters of like, oh, hold on, nope, not quite the amazing thing we thought it was going to be, and they're really pulling back. The rest of the world seems to be a little slower to do that. What are you noticing about kids who actually find ways to study more in writing and speaking out notes? And are you seeing some really powerful shifts there?
So there's actually studies done on kids who are reading and writing versus doing the same tasks on a screen, like doing their homework on a screen
Mm,
or reading on a, like reading books on screens. They have those, whether it's an e-reader or whether it's a program through the schools. And the studies show much higher cognition and comprehension skills through paper learning versus a tablet or a screen. So we know studies have shown that, and we
Mm,
know there is definitely better cognition with that. What I think we are seeing is the kids who are on screens a lot more have those, hyper attentive focus issues.
hmm.
And they're constantly almost like an ADHD trait. I don't want to label it autism because there's so many other aspects to it, but they will come into our room and hyper focus on certain things.
Hmm.
So they'll pick on, well, what's that thing on your machine? What's that thing on your machine? What's that thing on your machine? And want you to answer it. Okay, but what's that? Also, what's that? And what's there? And where should I put it? Where should I put it? And they'll repeat, they'll focus, they'll hyper focus. A lot of those children are children that are used to screens. And again, there a big caveat there because there are other aspects to
Yeah.
everyone. And I don't want to
Mm,
say it's all because of screens. That is not true. And, I want listeners to definitely know that. I'm just giving kind of an idea behind it where it could be because of too much screen time. And I
mm,
have 3 kids, and my youngest grew up more in this digital age. And he's definitely had more screens than any of my other two. And I can tell you, he has the most outbursts. He definitely has focusing issues, definitely has attention issues. And I 100% attribute it to that. I
mm.
definitely attribute it to that. And so we have made a conscious decision to try our best. I mean, we're struggling as parents because again, we have to work and all of that, but we try our level best to like make sure that he's not using devices at times he doesn't need it. And so for his birthday recently, someone bought him a toy phone. And it's just one of those toy phones with like little kitty games. And I cannot tell you, Alex, in 1.5 weeks of using it, he was addicted, first of all.
Mm.
He was a different person. He was, and I'm gonna label him crazy. He was crazy. And like I didn't even know what to
How
label him.
old?
He just turned 6. And he like
And when did he
literally
get this toy phone?
just now,
Oh,
like a
wow.
month ago.
Okay.
A month ago, he just turned 6. And so
Mm,
a month ago he got the phone. Within a week and a half, me and my husband both knew this is the phone. This is not
mhm.
us. And it's a toy phone, but it's addictive because it plays these little games, right?
Yeah.
And he was on
Well, it's
it
an early
many, many
adopter
hours.
program. Yeah.
He
Mm,
was on it so many hours. So obviously, I took the phone and he never saw it again.
mm,
And he kept asking, "Where is it? Where is it?" He kept repeating the behaviors. "Where is it? Where is it? Mama, where is it? Pulling on me. Where is it?" And he would constantly do that for like a few days.
wow.
I don't know. I don't know where it went. I don't know where it went. It's
Mm,
gone. I don't know. You must have lost it. I have no idea.
yeah.
He's back to normal.
Mm,
Like I am not joking. Like we had to take it away from him. And I knew this kid is a different person because of it. So again, with children, we are seeing some of these, attention issues, focus issues, especially when we get them to read letters, as part of an eye exam. We will see those issues. And you know, my job, I'm not a learning expert. I'm not a psychologist. This is not my field. I'm an eye doctor. So, it's not to give them all these diagnoses. I'm not, that's not my field of expertise. But I do definitely have a conversation when I see that children are slower or repeating many letters, slower at processing it. I will give parents an idea and I'll say, are they on par with grade level? I'll phrase it in a way
mm,
just to get the parents to start thinking, how's our focus? How's our attention? Sometimes it's the eye muscles where we need to correct with a pair of glasses to help strengthen the muscle. Sometimes they need a little, kicker, or eye exercises. There are
yeah.
eye exercises that can strengthen our muscles for up close work. So, there's all sorts of other aspects to it, but I think screen time is definitely still a conversation that needs to be had with parents.
Mm. Gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for double the time,
Me
Meenal.
too.
This this has been really, really excellent to dive into some of the aspects of your brilliant book. I wish you the best of luck with it. I
Thank
think
you so much,
we've
Alex.
learned enough today to definitely start making some changes, start having a think. But I do hope people read it because it's very thorough and it really will give you that grounding that makes you have the real impetus to make changes because this is like literally a global team effort. We are literally all stuck on the screens. And so it doesn't happen if just one or two of us tries to push against the tide. It's
Hundred
a team human effort, I think.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%. And, the book is not about, big exercises or things that take 10 minutes a day. No, these are just practical lifestyle shifts that all of us can
Mm.
make and help our kids to. A big part of it is about kids, but also about us adults and introversion, empathy. That's something we didn't touch on, but lack of empathy. Empathy has declined by 40%. There was a study done out of the States, and a lot of it has to do with that, right? So,
Yeah.
empathy also is processed in those areas. And I think, knowing where you are in space, only then will you be able to understand where somebody else is in relation to you. And then only will you be able to understand their emotions. And that's a big part of the book as well, our loss of empathy and how we can kind of find our way back. But for me, I strive every day to, try to be a better person with not 10 exercises or 10 supplements, but just to have those basic lifestyle shifts. And I want to urge people to make those changes. I think it
Mm.
will definitely calm their nervous system down.
Well, I'm very motivated. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you for
and
having me.
we'll see you on socials.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you for joining us in listening to this week's show. If you're not already subscribed or following the show on whatever platform you listened, please do that now. It helps enormously in terms of getting this show out to more people. Another way you can connect and support the work we do so that we can support you in your low tox life is join us in the Low Tox Club. You'll get access to amazing member masterclasses where we invite some of our best show guests for a live Q&A with members. You also have great shopping discounts from low tox businesses and honestly, the nicest low tox community Facebook group that exists on the internet. I do hope you join us there. It costs just the price of a coffee a month on average. Head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the Explore tab, and Low Tox Club is the first option there. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.